Why is everybody so surprised about this banking crisis? Banks have never been a good investment. Banks always underperformed the general stock market over the long term. Look at this, right? This is the JP Morgan chart as you know it, and this looks fine, right? It goes up and to the right over the long term. It starts in 1969 all the way to today. Okay, the price goes up. But the problem is always opportunity costs, right? You could put your money elsewhere. So let's look at JP Morgan divided by the S&P 500. How is one of the largest banks doing, one of the most successful banks doing relative to the rest of the stock market? This is down 65%, right? Over this very, very long time frame as well. So even if you bet on the winner, right? On the one bank that's also profiting from this crisis, right? All these deposits, they're moving from the small regional banks to the bigger banks because they are systemically relevant, etc. So they get bailed out. So people are scared of the small banks. The big banks, they should be profiting from this, right? But over the long term, they don't. And even this recent increase, it's a blip in the overall long-term underperformance. This is JP Morgan. And this is an international issue. This doesn't just happen in the US. This is everywhere. Look at this. This is Deutsche Bank divided by the German DAX index. Down 95% since when is it starting? 2006, right? So you really don't want to be in banks over the long term. Same is true for airlines, for example. What do you do? What do you want to be in long term? Let's look at the following. Let's look at the Nasdaq divided by the S&P 500 over the very, very long term. So let's take maybe a 3-week candle here. This is the chart. What do we see here, right? We see a long-term outperformance. We also see here a huge run-up and a huge crash. This was the .com crash, okay? So this is where all stocks went down, but tech stocks went down more because they went up more. So this was a crash of 68%. But this chart here starts in 1985. And this is a constant outperformance. Where does the outperformance come from? Probably from fundamentals, as in economies of scale, right? You can serve more customers without any additional marginal costs. You can scale very quickly globally. You don't have a lot of distribution costs. All of those things are fundamentally stronger than if you just work in atoms, so to speak, right? When you produce cars, you have to ship them somewhere else. When you build something, any kind of product that you have to distribute around, these kinds of business models, they scale slower, they have less margin, and these tend to then also underperform if there is demand for the tech products. So this is what you want to be in over the decades, in my opinion. In my opinion, over the decades, it makes sense to go where the growth in the future is. And it is, in my opinion, still in tech. It's unlikely going to be that the oil companies over the next 20, 30 years are suddenly going to outperform the tech companies. There are blips, there are crashes, but I don't think we will see something like the .com exuberance. But still, right? Make sure, this is how I do this, make sure that you allocate your capital to industries that are fundamentally sound over the very long term. Don't get in banks. Don't be surprised if banks have to get bailed out time and time again. The business model doesn't work that well. There's a lot of competition, there's no differentiation, there's a lot of manual processes, a lot of regulation, a lot of leverage as well. And even the winner here, even JP Morgan, doesn't do as well as the entirety of the index, of the stock market index. So don't be surprised. Banking crisis will continue. What can you do against this, right? If you still want to have your money relatively safe, this is the Bitcoin Strategy channel, right? I talk about Bitcoin all the time. Had to plug this. There's a next video about Bitcoin, how I personally dollar cost average into this, how I ride those waves as well. If you're on that ride as well, feel free to check out that next video that comes over here. Thanks for watching this one and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.